right, well, we are in our current series, which is called Me, Real Life, You. Our topic this morning is being friendly. And so over the past few weeks, Gabe has been talking to us about relationships, what it means to have life-giving relationships, the different ways that we can express love to one another, and how we can both give and receive feedback. It's been a great series, so if you've missed any or all of it, I would encourage you to take some time during the week and to go online and watch it. Our question for today is, are you friendly? Are you friendly? Yeah, awesome. Look, I don't need a word of knowledge to know that there were some people here that you are relieved that I've now started talking so that you can stop. I recognise these moments can feel awkward for the introverts among us. It's not that we don't like talking to people, but maybe we just don't like it being sprung on us like that. Or maybe you're here and you're just in a space where you're carrying a burden and it just feels like a lot of effort to talk to people, and I can understand that we all do have those seasons. Now, where are all my extroverts? Yeah, there's a few around. I know that you all loved that. And so you can thank me later. If you were sitting next to someone that you know, you were like, great, I don't have to wait till the end of the service to catch up. I can have a good old chat now. And even if it was someone that you didn't know, I bet you're one of these people that thinks there's no strangers, only friends I haven't met yet. So you're welcome. Back to our question this morning. Are you friendly? Good. About 25 years ago, I was living in Sydney. My parents still lived on the farm where I grew up. And my mum had to fly down to the city for an appointment. So I took the day off work, and while she was there, we had lunch together. And when it was finally time for her to head back home, she said, "Can you help me call a taxi?" Because she's from the country and you don't really call taxis in the country, you just take your car. And anyway, so I called her a taxi and she got in it and she headed off to the airport for her flight home. So far, so good. A few days later, she calls me, she tells me about her trip home. She had the loveliest taxi driver. She told me his name, she told me that he was from Iran, that he had a girlfriend, he had a child, and that it was really tough for him because his family was still back in Iran. And as they talked for what was probably a 20-minute journey, she heard his whole life story, it seemed. Anyway, they must have hit it off during the drive to the airport, because she told me that when they got to the airport, they swapped numbers, and she had invited him and his family to come back to the farm. I said, "You did what?" She goes, "I invited him and his family to come back to the farm," like I hadn't heard her. I was like, what in the world? Anyway, I've got to say, my mum is one of the friendliest people I've ever met. She's always telling us about new friends that she makes. She will head down to the grocery store to buy something. She'll come back and she'll say, "Oh, I met the loveliest person in the checkout line, and this was their name," and all the details. You know, she'll go on a road trip, go to a concert, new friends, common occurrence. Anyway, back to the taxi story. A few months later, I'd almost forgotten about the whole incident, but I was talking to my mum on the phone again. She says to me this particular day, "Do you remember my friend, the taxi driver?" I said, "How could I forget?" She told me that he'd been in touch and him and his family were coming to the farm to visit. And sure enough, they followed through. They came out to my parents' farm. I should mention it was a 10-hour round trip. And there were photos to prove it. I didn't ask if they stayed overnight. I really didn't want to know. But I think it's fair to say that my mum is a friendly person. And I love my mum. I love you if you're watching, Mum. But in my opinion, this was friendliness gone too far. I'm going to guess that most of us probably aren't going to invite a random taxi driver home for the weekend. But what does it look like to be friendly in everyday life. Here are some things that we can consider. Am I approachable? How do I come across to other people? What does my body language communicate? Am I willing to take the first step? Do I ask questions, start a conversation, or engage in small talk? Am I genuinely interested in other people and in their lives and what they've got to say? Do I notice those who are alone or on the outside, and do I make room for them? And what happens when we see people the next time? Are we consistent? Do we show that same warmth and kindness from our first interaction? Here is a key point for today. Friendliness is valuable, but friendships are vital. Friendliness can be the first step in opening the door to making friends. It's a starting point for participating in the type of community that God created for us. In Genesis 2 verse 18, God says, "It's not good that man should be alone." God loves us and cares for us, and he invites us to extend that same care and kindness to others through our relationships. I love what it says in Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verses 9 to 12. The NIV translation renders it this way: "Two are better than one, because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up. Also, if two lie down, they will keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? Though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves. A cord of 3 strands is not easily broken." Friendships are a blessing because we can accomplish more than we would on our own. We can give and receive help when we need it, and we benefit from the comfort, encouragement, and strength of others. To be human is to need one another, and friendliness is where it begins. I actually suspect that there's a high correlation between friendliness and having friends. Throughout the New Testament, we see stories of Jesus modeling friendliness, valuing friendship. You know, I was shocked when my mum invited a taxi driver that she barely knew back to her house. But let's be honest, Jesus also did some things his disciples and the people of the day were shocked about. Let's consider the story of the Samaritan woman at the well. Basically, his disciples leave him alone for 5 minutes to go and get some food. They come back and he's crossed all sorts of social boundaries. He's talking to a woman, but not only that, she's a Samaritan woman. He's talking to someone that the Jews would have normally avoided. This was no isolated incident. He ate in the homes of tax collectors. He noticed Zacchaeus up a tree and invites himself over for a meal. He associated with those of influence and he allowed sinners to come close. While he was a guest in Simon the Pharisee's home, he allowed a woman who was a known sinner to wash his feet with her tears and dry them with her hair. Jesus didn't pull away from her because of her reputation. And when his disciples tried to stop the little children coming to him, his response was, "Let the little children come to me and do not hinder them." Again, Jesus was showing his disciples that the people they might have considered less important were deeply valuable to him. I really like Jesus' style. He initiated conversations. He noticed and welcomed people. No one was beneath him, and no one was out of his league. He made time for people, and he made room for people. He accepted those that others might reject. Jesus was friendly, and he had friends. In our sermon a couple of weeks ago, we were reminded that people didn't just know Jesus. They didn't just know about him or know of him, but he allowed himself to be known to people. There were the crowds, there were the one-off encounters, but there's also community. Jesus had committed friendships, and within these there were varying levels of intimacy. He had 3 who he was especially close with. They were also part of his group of 12 disciples, And then he had a wider group yet again around him. And there's a diagram that Gabe showed us a couple of weeks ago. If we could please have that one. It's a story of, it's a diagram of our relational world, and it's really what Jesus modeled for us. I want to ask the question this morning, what does it take to move from initial friendliness to the intimacy and commitment of genuine friendship that we can find in the inner circles? The first thing we need to do is to recognize that friendliness can be offered to everyone. That's the entire outer blue circle. We can offer friendliness to everyone. Friendliness breaks the ice. It opens the door. It doesn't have to be hard. It can be as simple as a smile, a question, or just noticing and acknowledging someone. Friendliness can begin at a somewhat superficial level, but it has the potential to go so much deeper. And that's when we move into those inner circles. Friendship takes something more of us. It requires us to keep turning up. It requires us to see beyond the surface of one another. And the reality is that friendship is something we only have the capacity to offer a limited number of people. I want to consider today what it takes to move beyond simply being friendly. It can be tempting to keep people at a certain distance. There's a certain sense of safety in living life that way. We can meet people in public spaces, we can be friendly, we can make small talk. And that's a great way to start friendships. I think it's actually a wise way. But if we're going to become real friends, at some point we have to move beyond the public space, both physically and emotionally. We need to be willing to step out of our comfort zones and allow people to see more of who we really are. There's a simple model that can help us understand that process. Who here has heard of Johari's window, or Johari's window, as I've also heard it called? So basically, Johari's window is a simple tool that helps us think about self-awareness, and it helps us to understand how much of ourselves we allow others to see. It was developed in 1955 by two psychologists I've read, Joseph Luft and Harrington Ingham. So how it works is that the model was designed by them combining the first portion of their first names. So Joseph added the Joe, Harrington added the Harry, and all of a sudden you've got Joe Harry. And I was kind of thinking, reminds me a little bit of when Mao and I preached the other Sunday. We combined Wendy and Mao, and we got wow. So Mao, if you are watching this morning, I think when you get back to work this week, maybe we can work on some kind of church model, and we're going to call it the wow model. I really think that will stick. Anyway, moving right along. That was a really bad joke. Sorry. Sometimes it's just there to be done, hey? Anyway, back to normal programming. Their model uses 4 simple areas to show us what we know about ourselves and what other people know about us. So I'm not sure how well you can see the diagram, but in the top left, we've got what's called the open self, or the open area. This is the area of our life that is both known to us and known to others. If we move to the right, the orange section is called the blind self. This is the part of ourself that is not known to us, but it's known to others. So the open area might be something like our eye colour. You know, I've got blue eyes. We can all see that, you know that, I know that. The blind area might be something that you know about me, but I haven't yet realised. So a bad habit that I've had, or a good habit maybe. The bottom left is the hidden self, and that is the area that we ourselves know, but we hide that from others. So that might be how we're particularly feeling at any given moment. We might not be willing to share that with everyone. In the bottom right, we have what's called the unknown area or the unknown self. These are the areas that are not yet known to us and not yet known to others. And they're things that might be revealed over the course of time, maybe a particular gift or talent that we've not yet realized. And so here's how that connects to friendship. If we're going to grow friendships and deepen trust, we need to allow people to see more of us. We need for this open area to expand. In this picture, actually, it's already up there. We can see how that works through feedback. We can invite others to give us feedback, to those that we love and trust, ask them to let us know, if there's a bad habit that we have that we really should be aware of. That opens up what we are aware of for ourselves. For the hidden self, we can, as we begin to trust people, we can become more vulnerable and we can reveal more of ourself to them, with our close friends perhaps. And the area of discovering more about our unknown self, that might be trying new things either on our own or with new people. The more we know about one another, the more we're willing to be known, the deeper our friendships can become. I want to talk about how we can apply this model. If someone reveals a little bit more of themselves, how we respond really matters. It can determine whether they will open up to us and trust us again in the future. If someone asks us for feedback, be honest, but do tell the truth in love. If someone is vulnerable with you, thank them for sharing, thank them for trusting you, and hold that confidence. Do you know, sometimes we can take the initiative and help people to open up. We can do this when we slow down, when we ask people how they're really doing, when we take time to listen. I think it's important that we take notice of the little things. Maybe if we ask someone how they are and there's that brief hesitation, maybe you need to ask them how they really are. Maybe there's a change in their tone or a particular word that they place emphasis on. Lean into these moments. And when someone chooses to open up, don't avoid it, don't rush past it, stay with them. Be there not only for people's celebrations, but be there in the difficult moments as well. I think one of the most hurtful things we can do is to not acknowledge people's pain. I recognise that it can sometimes be uncomfortable. We may not know the right thing to say, but just to acknowledge that people are going through a tough time can go a long way. Proverbs 14 verse 10 puts it this way: the person who shuns the bitter moments of friends will be an outsider of their celebrations. When people have tough times, don't avoid them, don't pretend it didn't happen, acknowledge them. But what about us? What are the things that can stop us from allowing others to see more of us? Is it a fear of rejection or judgment? It can be hard to be vulnerable. Maybe we've been hurt in the past. Maybe we've been rejected. Maybe we've been misunderstood when we've allowed people to see our struggles and our weaknesses. I can relate to that. But don't let fear hold you back. The benefits of meaningful friendships and personal growth will far outweigh the risks. I want to talk now about what this means in real life. I want to share some of my own experiences. Over the years, Dave and I have moved a few times for one reason or another. We've now lived in 4 cities together and 2 countries. And we know the importance of friendship. We value friendship. We also know that you need to be intentional about making friends. I think especially as you get older and have more responsibilities in life. And so the first 2 times that we moved within our marriage, I knew that the Lord was in it. We had prayed before moving. And so then once we knew that that's what God was calling us to do, my prayer then changed to, Lord, show me what you want me to do when I get to this new place. But when we moved to New Zealand, to Dunedin, I knew that God was wanting us to do things a little bit differently. I sensed him saying quite clearly that when you get there, the first thing is not what are you going to do, it's who are you going to do life with. And this really changed how we navigated this season. Because when you have the right who in your life, the what will become easier. So when we arrived here, we set aside some time, we made room. We were fortunate not to have to start work as soon as we moved here. We waited until the kids settled into school, and we intentionally created space for relationships. We positioned ourselves where relationships could take place. Quite often, that was the school gate and the schoolyard. We went to the school assemblies for the first couple of months. We arrived early for school pickups. We'd spend time talking to other parents. Our kids loved this new school, so sometimes we'd find ourselves half an hour, 40 minutes after school pickup. We'd still be standing there talking to people. We loved it. We loved that people weren't in a rush. We loved that we had the time to be able to engage. We volunteered to help with school excursions in that season. Now, this might be a little bit controversial. I'm Australian, but I really don't like the beach. I can tell you about it later if you want, but I actually went and helped out at a beach excursion. Dave and I didn't get in the water or anything, but I was there, and it was just a great opportunity to be able to connect with some other parents and get to know them. And we also started coming to church. We started coming here to Elim, and we came week after week after week and started to meet people. And in both of those places, in church and in school, we took initiative. We introduced ourselves, we asked questions, we put ourselves out there. We also took notice. I went through a season when we first moved here. Everyone and everything was new. New church, new school, Dave would get a new job, I'd get a new job, everything new. And so there were lots of names to remember, lots of details. Once you get to a certain age, if you've got kids, it's not just remembering one person's name. You've got to remember, the husband if there's one. You've got to remember the kids. Like, it's a big thing. So what I would actually do, and it sounds a little bit awkward, but often on the drive home from school, I'd let Dave drive and I'd get my phone out and I'd write down the names of the people that I met. I'd write down a small detail to help me remember what they look like. I wrote down the names and ages of their kids and anything else that they shared that I thought was important to them. And I can tell you that the times when I do that and I'm really intentional, I do a whole lot better remembering people's names. We can think that we'll remember, but we forget. So that was something really practical that I did in that season. So as I mentioned, we had plenty of spare time in that season. When we received invitations, we did our best to say yes, because we wanted to meet new people. We wanted to make friends. And over time, we did make friends, and people began to trust us. I remember the first time someone asked me to pick up their kids from school and drive them to sport. I was so excited that someone trusted me. That was actually a really significant moment that meant a lot to me. I felt as I was beginning to find community here in Dunedin. There was something else really, really practical that we did. We made physical room for people. When we lived in Australia, we only ever had 5-seater cars, but when we moved here, we bought a 7-seater car, and it absolutely changed how we did life. After school, there was time to take other kids home, to have play dates. After church, sometimes we'd end up with a car full of kids, and they'd all come back to our house. Now, we are wise people. We also have like-minded friends who have 7-seater cars, so occasionally it goes the other way around. Sometimes our kids will go off with other families. Dave and I get a lunch date. It's great. But honestly, that 7-seater car, it's not flash, it's not fancy, but it's one of the best things that we've ever bought because it's changed how we do life and how we can make friends. We also have room in our home. It took us quite a while to find a house here in Dunedin for various reasons. And And thank God he provided for us a great house in a great community. But one of the criteria was that we have an 8-seater dining table. And so I knew that the house that would become our home would need to fit that table. It was actually the only piece of furniture that we bought because it was so expensive to shift and move items at that time. But we bought our table because that's where our friends and our family had sat around, and we knew that there would be an opportunity for new friends to sit around it as well. And so that table creates space, not just for our family, there's only 4 of us, but it creates room for us to invite others. We also have a spare room because we've got friends and family overseas, and we want them to be able to come and stay and visit. This is really important to us. Friendship requires us to create physical and practical space for other people. Do you know, we can be in seasons, though, where this can be hard, and we have to get creative. We can gather around the coffee table. We can gather around the picnic table. Dave and I actually got married outdoors. We got married in the Botanical Gardens in Sydney. That's because we wanted to invite a lot of people. We wanted people to be able to bring their kids. We didn't want anyone to be left out. We've done that also for birthday parties. We'll head to the park. So much easier if you've got a crowd. And, you know, if there's seasons where we've had limitations or we just want to do something a little bit different, we've also done potlucks. Basically, we've learnt that making friends, having friendship, it doesn't need to be complicated, but sometimes you're going to have to get creative in how we include others in our life. And so I guess if I'm being really honest, I'm starting to develop a playbook for new seasons, things I know that have worked in the past so that I can intentionally roll them out again in future seasons if I need to. Earlier this year, Sammy started high school. I kind of felt like I was starting high school too. I think that I was actually more nervous than he was. I had a fear of the unfamiliar, a fear of the unknown, and I recognised this in myself, and I thought, what am I going to do? I know that when there's been other seasons where we've moved town, we've gone and we've started at a new church. Basically, I've just decided that I will get in and I will serve and I will volunteer, and that's how I'll get to know people. So I thought, I'm sure the same can go for school. And so I had a friend ring me up. She had volunteered for school camp. It was in the 2nd or 3rd week of the term, and she said, Wendy, I'm coming. Why don't you come with me? And I kind of wanted to say no. I got all nervous. I thought, what if the other parents don't like me? I was going to be cooking. What if I burn the food? You know, there's a whole lot of stuff I had to get over, but I decided to say yes. And it was such a good way. I now feel more comfortable in that environment. And I would just really encourage you to do the same when you enter into a new season. Do feel free to borrow a page from my playbook if you like. All right, I'm going to invite the worship team now to come and to join me. In a moment, I'm going to give you an opportunity to respond to this message. Today I've talked about the importance of friendliness. But the truth is, God has designed us for more than being friendly. He designed us for friendship. He designed us to have committed relationships with one another. He designed us to support and to care for each other. Do you know, friendliness is a great first step, but building friendships takes time and consistency. Friendships grow deeper as we learn to be more vulnerable with one another. And this is a two-way street. True friendship doesn't happen overnight, but it does grow through shared experiences, through trust, through showing up for one another. So today I'm going to give 3 invitations. The first, to take a step towards friendliness. The second, to take a step towards friendship. And the third, to take a step towards Jesus. You might like to close your eyes just to reflect as the worship team begin to lead us again. You know, maybe you're here today and friendliness feels hard. My prayer as I've been preparing this message is that God will give you the courage to take the next step if that's the situation that you find yourself in. Can I invite you to do something really practical at the end of the service? Can I encourage you to stay for morning tea, and as you line up, to smile at someone, to say hello, to introduce yourself. You don't have to make a new friend today. You just need to take the first step. My prayer is that your effort will be both received and reciprocated. My second invitation today is for those of you who are here and you feel like God is calling you to go deeper. Don't stop at friendliness. Make room, take time, create a context for friendship. Maybe take that courageous step and invite someone to join you for lunch. Let them see a little bit more of you. Ask the hard question and be willing to answer the hard questions as well. Take the next step towards friendship. My third invitation is a truly important one. It's an invitation to lean into friendship with Jesus. Maybe you're new to town, maybe you're new to church. Maybe you're in a season where you're having to build new friendships. And I recognize that even if you extend friendliness at the end of the service today, it's going to take time to build friendships. People you can share the burdens of life with, people to celebrate with. I want to remind you today, as you're developing new friendships, you already have a friend in Jesus, that you're not alone. I want to encourage you that there are friendships ahead of you, and I want to invite you to bring God along in that journey. Psalm 68 verse 6 reminds us that God sets the lonely in families. You don't have to navigate this season alone. God is with you, and He will help to bring the right people around you. Maybe for you, this is more about just needing friendship with people. Maybe you're here today and you don't yet know Jesus. Maybe your life feels like a mess. You've burnt some bridges with people and you need a fresh start. Today I want to invite you into friendship with Jesus. The way that you do this is that you admit that you've sinned and fallen short of God's glory. You admit that you need His friendship. Secondly, you believe and accept that Jesus died for your sin, and that He rose again. And thirdly, you choose to put your trust in Him, to receive His forgiveness and to follow Him. I've asked the team to lead us in the song, What a Friend We Have in Jesus. As they do, our prayer team are going to make their way forward. They're going to be ready and willing to pray for anyone who would like prayer. Maybe you're alone, maybe you're struggling with friendliness, maybe you're lacking friends right now. Maybe you're carrying a burden, you want to bring it to the Lord in prayer. Please do come. And if you would like to accept Jesus for the first time, if you'd like to recommit your life to Him, please also come forward. It would be our privilege to pray for you this morning. All right, bless you, church.